Direct presidential action. All right, class. Let's talk about one of the most fascinating and sometimes controversial aspects of the U.S. presidency: direct presidential action. When the framers wrote the Constitution in 1787, they gave us a president who was powerful enough to lead but bound by checks and balances so we wouldn't end up with a king. But over time, the office has evolved. Presidents have grown more powerful, especially when it comes to acting on their own, without waiting for Congress. This is what we call direct presidential action. The constitutional basis for this comes mainly from Article 2. It contains the vesting clause, which grants the president the executive power, and the take care clause, which says the president must take care that the laws be faithfully executed. Now, those words sound straightforward, but in practice they've been stretched and tested over centuries. So, how can a president act directly? There are several tools. Let's start with the most famous one, the executive order. An executive order is an official instruction from the president to the federal bureaucracy. It doesn't need congressional approval, and it has the force of law, at least within the executive branch. Presidents use them to set policy quickly. Franklin D. Roosevelt, for example, issued Executive Order 9066 during World War II, which led to the internment of Japanese Americans. That order was controversial, to say the least. Then there are pardons. The president can grant a pardon for federal crimes. This is an absolute power. Congress and the courts can't overturn it. Gerald Ford famously pardoned Richard Nixon after Watergate, hoping to heal the nation, but it also stirred intense debate about accountability. In foreign policy, presidents often use executive agreements. These are like treaties, but they don't need Senate ratification. They can be faster and more flexible, though less permanent. Think of President Obama's 2015 Iran nuclear deal, done without the treaty process, but also easier for the next president to withdraw from, which is exactly what happened. Another, more subtle tool is the signing statement. This is when a president signs a bill into law, but adds a statement explaining how they interpret the law, or even suggesting they might ignore parts of it they believe are unconstitutional. President George W. Bush used signing statements extensively, which raised alarms about bypassing Congress's intent. Now, why do presidents use these tools? Often it's because Congress is gridlocked or moving too slowly. In emergencies, wars, natural disasters, economic collapse, waiting for legislation could be costly. Direct action can move the machinery of government immediately, but there are trade-offs. Let's be honest. Direct action is powerful, but it's also risky. First, it can polarize politics. The other party often views it as an overreach, leading to lawsuits or efforts to undo it. Second, it's fragile. What one president orders, the next can reverse with the stroke of a pen. Finally, it can raise questions about democratic legitimacy. Are we okay with one person, even the president, making big policy decisions without Congress? This debate ties into something called the unitary executive theory, the idea that the president has near complete control over the executive branch. Supporters say it ensures decisive leadership. Critics warn it creates what historian Arthur Schlesinger Jr. called an imperial presidency, where the president dominates the political system. Let me give you a scenario to think about. Imagine Congress can't agree on new environmental protections. The president decides to issue an executive order setting stricter emission standards for industries. Supporters cheer. It's bold and necessary. Critics say it's unconstitutional overreach. The next president could repeal it entirely. Was the action worth it? That's the challenge presidents face every day. So, to wrap up, direct presidential action is a double-edged sword. It's fast, decisive, and can break through political deadlock, but it's also controversial, impermanent, and prone to abuse. As citizens, we need to watch how presidents use this power and decide for ourselves when it's justified and when it's a step too far.